So now I should.
Hopefully it will go live. Hi guys, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zickery of Space Command. Mark Zickery of Space Command here, and this is something for all of our backers, all of our investors, all of our fans, anyone who's sitting at home, which is probably a lot of people. Tons of stuff to talk about and big announcements to make. So we will get going on all of that. And as you have questions, please feel free to ask them. First off, the big news is I'm putting together a new episode of Space Command specifically for this time where we're all stuck in our apartments. It's going to be free to everybody. It's going to be an episode utilizing a lot of stuff we've already shot, plus that hasn't been put together yet, that hasn't been disseminated, VFX shots, etc. Plus, our actors are going to be performing in their own places with perhaps green screen behind them, using their own cameras, no crews, nothing to contaminate anyone, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to take you with me every bit of the way, and we'll see how it all goes. And but what I've been doing yesterday and today is going through all of our footage that from various things we've generated and making a list of all the different bits and pieces we have so that we can make this thing work. It's going to be commenting on the times we're living through. It's going to be entertaining, I hope. And I'm going to be reaching out to our stars and seeing who wants to play, who wants to be part of this. And because my goal is to be as positive and as proactive as possible. We're living in a time of uncertainty, but that doesn't mean we can't reach out to others. It doesn't mean we can't create art. It doesn't mean anything can, I mean, basically, we're still ramping up to shoot the 4th hour when this lifts. We're building sets. We're doing all the stuff we've been doing, generating visual effect shots, working in post on hours 2 and 3, ramping up to shoot hour 4, and then beyond. But obviously, we're keeping safe. We're keeping, most of our people can work at home on doing visual effect shots and editing and so forth. It's thank God for Zoom. Thank God for the PayPal. I'm paying my people. We have a Kickstarter campaign going right now. It's got, I think, 8 days left, something like that. And we want to make sure that people keep their money in that campaign. And if you can pledge more, please do. We're going to be offering a lot of really cool stuff, including the audio play that's going to be going out. It's almost complete. Will be complete in the next few days. It's a half-hour prequel with Doug Jones, Robert Picardo, Mira Furlan, Bill Mumy, and Michael Harney, and Ethan McDowell, etc. And it's just terrific. Angelique Scott's in it, many of our Space Command cast, and it's just a phenomenal piece of work. I'm very proud of it. It starts 30 years from now and covers 30 years and ends just when the pilot starts. So it's really fun in that way. We're just moving along. We're doing everything we need to be doing. Many people have mentioned the stuff on my wall behind me. You can probably see an original cell from the Star Trek cartoon show, a signed picture of an astronaut, a signed letter from Gene Roddenberry. There's just a ton of stuff on the back wall. Kurt Vonnegut letter to me. That's over here, or over there. That's the stars of Space Patrol, mask of Leonard Nimoy. Below that is a mask of the creatures from Eye of the Beholder, and below that is a Halloween mask of Buzz Corey of Space Patrol from the 50s. So, and then on the other side, just above the dog's head, you can see the first British edition of the novel Metropolis from 1925, etc. So now we have some people asking questions. Let's see. Really enjoyed your interview on Orville Nation. Thank you. Hi, guys. Hello, everybody. Glad to have you here. So let the word out. We're also going to be, because our team fell through the cracks and they didn't send this notice out to everyone in time. On Sunday, we are going to have a special question and answer session for our Kickstarter backers, for our investors, etc. And again, if you want to buy a Space Command share, we're coming to a point where we will not be able to keep our people on payroll. We only have a handful of people that we're paying, and we won't be able to keep the rent on the studio. And we do not want to close the studio down, because that would be, we'd have to throw out the set. MarkZickery@gmail.com, 323-363-1259, and we can answer all your questions, send you the appropriate paperwork. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and you'll get a percentage of my producers' net profits from Space Command. Right now, the CW is looking at Space Command. Amazon is looking at Space Command. I had a very good meeting with their executive on Saturday via Zoom, and he's having the whole science fiction team look at the show. And well, cross your fingers. We'll see what happens. But they're going to need programming, God knows, and they could do a lot worse than Space Command. I think I'm very proud of what we've all accomplished. So let's see. Are there any questions? If not, I can just keep going. I mean, what I've started doing is looking through the footage. Mike Harney is aboard. Ethan McDowell is aboard. Brian McClure is aboard to be in this new special episode. And you know, we'll see what emerges. I'm just starting to play with it. Hopefully within a week I could write a script, and then we'd start shooting with our actors on their own, using their own cameras like this one. And again, it won't be technically at the level of what we do normally, but it'll be very interesting. And so if you think of it almost like a live episode of Space Command, and maybe that's something we can do too. So that might be very, very fun with our actors on the graphic novel and on the novel itself. I have to call Maya Bonhoff about that. The novel's completed. We just have to put it out. And so that's kind of the main stuff. If you have other questions, other things you'd like to know about, feel free. Let's see. Will Space Command have set time span like Babylon 5 had to tell a story, or episodic like TNG? That's a great question. Essentially, Space Command covers 150 years in the lives of 4 families: the Kemmers, the Odaras, the Sikanders, and the and Mazzy family, and plus Doug Jones and his synthetic followers. So so it does have a beginning, middle, and end. But then beyond that, as with Babylon 5, as with all these universes that we all create, it can go beyond that, and it can have offshoots looking at different characters and so forth. So that's something I very much want to do. It just becomes a matter of time and energy and money. So, and again, as I said, our Kickstarter campaign is still going. And you know, there's great perks, including we're going to be doing a Zoom session where people can ask me in little groups of like 10 people how to have careers, how to be a writer, how to make TV shows, all that stuff. Here's Adam Sartain. Yay,
hey guys.
And Adam, of course, is one of our investors as well. And
also on the team.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people. We have a whole team of people in charge
and dogs
of perks.
Yes, we do.
So I am, you may have gotten an email or 5,000 from me. Yes. Regarding perks, or sending you perks.
Yes.
We should have sent out almost all the digital perks. There's a couple things that haven't been finished yet.
Yes, we're completing them.
But we are working on completing those. And yeah, so if you have any questions at all about Space Command or anything, just go ahead and write them in the comments.
Yes.
I'll read them out for Mark, and we'll keep going here.
Yes, great.
Some shout outs to Captain Marco Hawk.
Yay.
Says hi. Yes.
Here we go. Oh, yes, Rudy. Yes.
I think we've already mentioned Mountains of Elysium, and Dennis Shelton says top of the day.
And then it says, I love Babylon 5. I was delighted to see alumni of that. Bruce, Mir, and Bill are all in the show. Yes, exactly. And I want to do a lot more of that kind of thing. Gigi Edgley from Farscape is going to be in Space Command. Armin Shimmerman, Ethan Phillips. I've been talking to Jonathan Frakes and Nana Visitor and Gates McFadden and George Takei. I mean, again, it just keeps going, and it's very, very fun. So we'll see who ends up being in the show, but there's a lot of adventures to come. Christina Moses from A Million Little Things, who starred in World Enough in Time with George Takei, the Star Trek episode I did. With Michael Reeves and many and sundry people. She's going to be in Space Command as well. Tons of stuff coming down the pike. So can't wait to do it. And
we're still planning the premiere, right, at the Chinese theater. But it's just going to be pushed.
Yeah, so obviously, for obvious reasons.
Right.
But we're definitely going to have the premiere at the Grumman's Chinese, the red carpet premiere, the Space Command convention, which we were thinking of having at our studio, so people can see the props and the sets and all of that stuff, with panels with our stars and the creators of the show, mainly Elaine and me, you know, and then other team members like Adam. And it's going to be great fun. We have tons of stuff to show, tons of stuff to share. And we're eager to do it, and it just keeps going, you know. So happy to be here, happy to be part of this.
We have a question from Mark Vaughn. Hello, Mark Vaughn.
Hello.
Do you have any aspirations about making a Space Command film in the future?
Well, it's funny. It's an interesting question because originally when we had the Kickstarter campaign, there was the question of whether it was going to be a standalone 2-hour film or whether it was going to be a series. And the more I was interviewed during the campaign by, podcasts and radio shows and whatnot, the larger the story grew. And I saw the great possibilities of it. And the challenge with films is that if you're going to make a big budget film, you're dependent on the studio, and that comes with a whole lot of baggage. And if you make a TV show, the writer is in charge, and which is why, in many cases, with some exceptions, the greatest science fiction stories have been on television, and so so for now it's a TV show. I'm not averse to films. I'm not averse to doing films, but again, more and more, everything is merging into deliverable content, and so the lines have kind of blurred. That said, we're going to be making Ashes, which is one of Elaine's science fiction movies. We're ramping up to do that, and we'll see where everything takes us. It's it's just a journey, and it's great to have our own studio. I'll say that. Great, cool. So continuing on, feel free to ask questions, guys. We're happy to answer them. I don't know how long we're going to be up and running because this was unannounced. Yeah. But the main cool thing is I'm going to start doing sessions, live stream sessions, as you see me pull together an episode of Space Command. And let me talk about that for just a minute. How one does that, because there's the larger arc. Space Command is structured in 2-hour stories that split down the middle as 1-hour episodes that then form a larger story over the course of a 12-hour season and beyond. And everything, the comic books, the radio plays, the novels are canon. So it's not like, Star Trek or whatever, where it's like, well, this story was good, but it doesn't count. So the prequel is the prequel to the pilot, that we've recorded as an audio play and that we're doing as a graphic novel. And Elaine and I are laying out now the entire season. I've written the first 8 hours of the 12-hour season, but it evolves and it changes as opportunities and possibilities present themselves. So what I'm doing now in terms of thinking of stories, I'm starting to think about how to have characters in isolation, whether to make that a part of the story, whether it's like they're in quarantine or they're on a ship and they've been trapped in different rooms, or how to basically put it all together. I'm starting to play with different notions and utilizing bits and pieces, probably even going back to the dailies that we shot, because we shot a lot of dailies on green screen, which will give us a lot of possibility. So I don't want it to have a huge post-production overhead. I don't want it to take the money away from post-production on hours 2 and 3 or prepping hour 4. So it has to be something that we can do very easily, just, with our own skills. So, so we'll see how it goes, but definitely I'll be showing you bits and pieces as we continue. And I think the more that we include you guys, the better. And again, if you haven't donated to Space Command, we have a Patreon page. You can put in like 10 or 20 or $100 a month. And all of this stuff helps enormously. I mean, honest to God, if you can't afford $7,500 shares, if you can afford $1,000 for the Kickstarter campaign, or 500, or just pledge $100 a month to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Mark Zickrey, or our Kickstarter campaign on Space Command Forgiveness. Yes. These things help enormously because, again, Elaine and I are okay where we can get by month to month, but we're not wealthy. And so I can't peel off, millions of dollars to make Space Command. Wish I could. I've probably put in maybe $150,000 of my own money on Space Command over the last few years. And even in terms of keeping the lights on, we're now looking at the small amount we have in reserve to keep our studio, rented, to keep our employees paid. And again, as I say, we might have maybe 10 employees at most, probably fewer, but we don't want to lose our editor. We don't want to lose our line producer, Adam. Of course, we're paying him a bit, again, just to help us to keep things moving forward. And no one is getting rich off Space Command, and nor should they, because This is something we're doing for the love of it, something we're doing because we want to be doing it. And so that's. But again, if you find a quarter in the couch cushions, or or your aunt was going to donate, was going to give you, a Maserati that you don't need because you can't drive anywhere now, etc.
We'll take that Maserati and turn it into a
futuristic car. We will. Speaking of which, the futuristic car is still being built. Tony Shand is building all the mechanics, and Eric Rodriguez, our wonderful designer of the alien hibernation ship and so forth, is building the exterior and the interior of the car. So again, most of our team can work solo. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Adam.
And we do have a bunch of questions now.
Good.
We'll start with Mountains of Elysium.
Okay, great.
Do you have a universe Bible at this moment, or is the universe still being explored?
That's a great question. I've generated various Bibles at various points, and maybe I'll offer them as like digital perks or whatever at some point. That would probably be a good idea to go through the files and see. Additionally, there's a couple of scripts we wrote that we're not going to be making. That they're just the show has moved on from what we perceived back then, and I probably will do those in one form or another, maybe as a table read, maybe as an audio play. Who knows? But yes, there's a lot of that stuff. But I'm still discovering the universe as we go because things emerge. You'll meet an actor like J.G. Hertzler or Barbara Bain. We had lunch with Barbara Bain a few months ago, and they're wonderful. And you say, okay, how can I put them in? How can I make that work? And you just think of ways to do stuff. And slowly but surely, it all comes to fruition. So it's terrific. I love doing this.
Great. Everyday Videos asks, have you spoken with Steven at Amblin? I remember seeing him before after one of the Space Command meetings.
I've met Spielberg a couple times. Haven't talked to him about Space Command. He's certainly a talented man. Obviously. It's funny when I was producing Sliders, I asked if we could utilize everything that Universal had used in other TV shows and movies, and we ultimately got to use some things from Jurassic Park, which was great fun. And we used stuff from 12 Monkeys and just on and on and on. Oh, it was great. And but Spielberg, when J.J. Abrams introduced me to him a couple of years ago, Spielberg, J.J. said he's the author of The Twilight Zone Companion, and Spielberg said, I live by that book. So, which was high praise indeed. Spielberg has tons and tons and tons of people surrounding him to keep everyone in the world out. Even after I'd met Spielberg before when he did the Twilight Zone movie, but even after JJ introduced me, I tried to send Spielberg a signed copy of the Twilight Zone with my compliments, the Twilight Zone Companion, and just to get through all the layers of people who needed to approve it, just to get it to him was a major headache. So he's at that level. So it's okay. I don't need Spielberg to make happen what I'm doing. So
you mentioned earlier you were talking about characters from Babylon 5.
Yes.
Dennis Shelton asks, will you eventually have more stars from Lost in Space? Have Bill Mumy.
It's an interesting question. And actually not from Lost in Space directly, but Veronica Cartwright, who was in Alien, of course, I'd very much like to work with her. And if Angela Cartwright wants to do something, that'd be fine too. Now, if you're talking about the original Lost in Space. If you're talking about the new one, the way I usually cast actors or name actors is I meet them at conventions, and that ain't gonna be happening for a while. And then it's the old dog and pony show, and we cannot afford that and do not need that at this point. But on the other hand, if you're on Lost in Space yourself, or if you know someone who's in the new Lost in Space, sure. I'm open to having the conversation, certainly. And the more the merrier. And there were certain actors that I very much wanted to use that we didn't have a chance to. Rene Auberjonois and I were in discussions, and I'm really sad that we didn't get to include him in Space Command. But thank God he was in Far Beyond the Stars, on DS9, because that was he was terrific in it. So, other questions?
Yes. I'm just posting to our exclusive Facebook donors group.
Yay.
About this. Mm-hmm. And I did update all the Kickstarter campaigns.
Great.
It's a last minute thing, but you guys are welcome. We're going to be here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Captain Mark Gray, welcome.
Hey, hi, Mark Gray.
And I finally got here live for once.
Good.
Shout out for that. Diver Kim asks, will there be a network channel picking up Space Command? If so, will scenes or episodes be reshot or recast?
Yeah, we're pitching the show ongoingly. So as I said earlier, Amazon and the CW are now actively considering the show. And because of the pandemic, all production has shut down on everything. So when they start up again, they're going to need content voraciously, or in fact, they probably even need content now. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up Space Command now and said, how soon can you have episodes 2 and 3 ready? And we could do it, very quickly if we had enough money. And literally a matter of weeks, we could be done with episodes 2 and 3. But so I don't know. In terms of will we shoot scenes or recast or any of that? No one has asked me to do that. No one has said, if you, we'll buy it if you throw out, you know, what you've shot. No one has said that. So in a way, I've thought about the answer I'll have, which is my answer would basically be, look, if you want to do something radically different in the Space Command universe, we will create a second series with a different cast and different storyline. But on my end, I will still keep shooting the first season of Space Command that I've written with Ethan McDowell and Brian McClure and the people I love working with. But because it hasn't come up, it may not come up. And if it doesn't come up, I won't have to deal with it. If it does come up, I'll deal with it. I mean, as you remember, as you guys all know, I spent, 30 years and more working for the studios and the network. So I'm very good at fielding almost any kind of request and coming up with a creative and positive solution. That's what the job is, where they say, put a dwarf in it, and you say, well, really? And and not to disparage little people, sorry, but what I mean is sometimes they'll make suggestions that make no sense at all, particularly back in the days when all the executives were on drugs.
Like a giant mechanical spider.
Yeah, giant mechanical spider. That's referencing the unmade Superman movie that then ended up in Wild Wild West. Right. But by the way, if you've never seen the documentary on the Superman movie Tim Burton was going to make, it's a great documentary by John Schnepp, who sadly died last year. A wonderful filmmaker, a wonderful guy. I highly recommend it. You can get it on Blu-ray, and I'm sure it's on streaming. I highly recommend it. Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman, and it sounds like it would have been a disaster, but I think it would have been wonderful. And it's an amazing documentary. So, but continuing on.
Yes, Charlie Zimmerman asks.
Hi, Charlie.
Do you plan on having a Space Command presence at any upcoming cons?
Well, the question is,
they resume.
Yeah, exactly. Do any of the upcoming cons plan to have upcoming cons? Yes, each year we're at Comic-Con, so I think we'll be there. I mean, there was about 2 years ago, I spent the year going to conventions. So I was at New York Comic-Con. I was at this upstate convention in upstate New York. I was at the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, and Comic-Con and so forth, and LostCon. The challenge is that there's only one of me, sadly, and as a result, I spent that year putting out the word on Space Command. But in the last couple of years, I've spent finishing Space Command and making more Space Command. So what I might want to do is when the pandemic lifts, what I might do is start having some of our cast go to some of the conventions and so forth, and maybe I wouldn't have to be at all of them. Maybe I could be on an uplink or something. But sadly, if any of you have any friends who put on Dragon Con, for years we've been reaching out to Dragon Con, offering to do a screening, offering to do a panel with our stars, and we've just totally hit a brick wall. And I don't know why, other than stupidity and arrogance, I guess. Not to disparage those people, but when I was on Sliders, I was flown to Dragon Con. When I was working on Star Trek and DS9, so I don't know what these guys are thinking or why they would say no.
I believe we were planning on having a presence at WonderCon.
Yes, we were,
year.
But I think they've canceled it. So
and those were for those of you in the hypotheticals, like in the alternate universe somewhere that this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. But one thing I will say is that if you know of any conventions that are planning to do virtual conventions, I'm happy to take part in that, and we'd even be willing to screen Space Command for those conventions. So we're happy to do that.
Great. Question from Captain Mark Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Have all actors shoot with green screens in their homes using FaceTime, Zoom to connect? Oh, yeah. We just talked about this.
Yeah. We're going to do a special Space Command episode that we're going to be doing during the pandemic, where our actors will be shooting at their homes using green screens and so forth. I'm just starting to pull together what that story will be, but I think we can do something really phenomenal.
Call it the new post-virus Zoom casting.
Yeah. But again, even if you guys can throw $100 our way, it really will help, particularly on the Kickstarter campaign on Patreon, because it's sort of like our VFX guy will say, well, I need to get these visual effects assets offline. It's only $100. I have to be able to say, yeah, you can do it, or because again, no one's getting rich off Space Command, but if I can keep my people on salary, it's not much. It's they could probably earn as much working at Burger King, but I want to keep these talented people aboard. So yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Let's see. Mountains of Elysium asks, what would you think of having a forum like the Lurker's Guide to answer questions and maybe tease future events. I
Sure.
realize that could cause issues as well, but still look at the Lurker's. Are you familiar? I don't
That's
know
Babylon 5. That's a Babylon 5
okay,
fan
okay.
site. If
Got it.
anyone wants to set one up, if anyone wants to run one, contact us and we can absolutely make it happen. You know, again, as I said, I have to be careful balancing the time that I spend raising money, the time that I spend, you know, doing Mr. Sci-Fi, the time that I spend writing scripts, directing, producing. You know, I have a small team. I mean, the total amount of people working on Space Command right now is probably maybe, you know, as I say, less than 10 people on
Yeah.
salary, and you know, maybe 20 people total, a lot of them donating their time for free. When we're up and running, when we're shooting, and you know, we might have 100 people, and again, not all of them are working for salary, but you try and pay people if it's a gaffer or a grip or a DP or whatever you want, or even a PA if you can, because you don't want people, you know, not being able to pay their light bill, you know. So you know,
Right.
exactly. So other questions?
Let's see here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Everyday Videos retracted it by saying makes sense, but I think we did cover this,
Mhm.
but they because we talked about you know, studios.
Oh, he says he did retract it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but one thing I want to say before we continue is I just want to thank all of you, because you know, you so many of these names I'm familiar with, your names and who you are, and some of you I've talked to on the phone over the years, and some of you I've, you know, interacted with online, and I'm just so grateful to anyone who gives me any word of support, any word of encouragement, or who offers their services in terms of VFX or prop building or anything, or who sends us money. You know, this stuff is hugely meaningful to me, because I'm very aware, you know, we get enormous amounts of content for free or virtually free. I mean, Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of this stuff. And so anyone who helps me in any way, you don't have to. I have to do this because I'm, you know, Don Quixote. I'm crazy, but and but you know, I'm driven to do this. But anyone who helps me, Adam, anyone who pops up, I mean, it's like thank you, thank you, thank you, because it wouldn't be possible without you. I mean, it really wouldn't. And I'm thrilled to be doing things this way. I love this because, you know, I remember back in the days of Star Trek, the original show, when we picketed outside NBC and we wrote letters, and 1 million letters went into NBC, and they gave us a 3rd season. Now, if this were the case, Gene Roddenberry just would have had a Kickstarter campaign, and he would have gotten his 4th season and 5th and so forth. You know, so the fans get it. The fans get it with Star Trek. The fans get it with The Expanse, The Orville. People understand. And whether you like Discovery or Picard or not, or Westworld or not, you know, there's a huge amount of shows being done now. And I know most of the people making those shows. And I'll tell you that these people are not cynics. They're coming from the heart. They're trying to make good television. If it fails to work, it's not for lack of trying. And so, you know, so I'm really happy to be working in the way I'm working, because I don't have to ask permission. And I'll tell you, you know, permission immediately creates a hierarchy where the person in charge isn't perhaps the best person to be in charge, because it will be a network executive or whomever. And you know,
Who doesn't
well,
like
yeah.
really know the show and isn't invested in
Yeah.
the show emotionally, at least.
Well, yeah, and again, you know, with Space Command, we're getting like 96% positive, 98% positive on Mr. Sci-Fi. You know, every now and then there's some crank who'll say something. And by the way, you know, those hurtful comments hurt. You know, I always try and respond with compassion. But it's, you know, if someone's going to be snarky, you know, it's I prefer not. You know, so, but you know, but everyone who helps. Everyone who does anything for us. We're going to be starting the spacesuit contest up again. It seems a perfect time for that. And we're also going to be having a poster contest I'm going to be announcing in the next few days. You know, so if anyone wants to do a Space Command poster, if they want to make a spacesuit, you know, please do. Or even a cool ray gun. I mean, any of that stuff, just, you know, make it, ship it to us. You know, my address is 7521 West Norton Avenue, apartment 8, West Hollywood, California, 90046. And my phone number is 323-363-1259. And my email is markzickery@gmail.com. And people say, you're crazy to give out your information. No one has ever misused it. No one has ever misused it. And, you know, so I believe in the kindness of strangers. And you can see how well that went for Blanche Dubois as they take her off to the lunatic asylum. But, you know, you take you make your choices. So, okay.
A couple comments here. Captain Mark says, I would be there helping if I was not in hospice.
Yes, and
or ill,
again,
but
yeah,
at least
well,
he can kick in on Kickstarter. And thank you,
yes,
Captain Mark.
yes,
And thank you for your kind words on Kickstarter.
yes.
I've been following those.
You and
as
your
well.
family, yeah, you and your family are wonderful, and your daughter, of course, won the Name the Creature contest with Spiny Cat Monkey, and it's going to be in the script, and it's going to be shot. And I've talked to Barbara Bragg, who plays the doctor on the Paladin, and she can't wait to do the line when she's autopsying the creature. It's going to be cool. We'll make sure that we let you know when we're shooting, and whichever family members want to come on set are more than welcome. So so just to let you know, and thank you for that.
And also, I personally want to say, as someone who's been in the trenches,
yes,
handling all of the Kickstarter complaints and everything.
Yes.
I want to thank all of our Kickstarter backers for being so patient.
Yes.
I just got started back on the team.
Yes.
Helping with perks back in August.
Yes.
So I know like there's backers out there who have backed since 2012 before I even knew what Space Command was, before I even so thank you all for being so patient. As you know, things in Hollywood take longer than we expect.
Well, particularly it's an aspect of money.
Yeah.
We're doing something that normally would cost $10 million an hour, perhaps 15, and if it was being done at a studio and network, and it costs us about $300,000 to do an hour of Space Command, and that's amazing,
incredible,
considering that we have 900 visual effects shots. But
for those, especially those of you who have seen what we've been putting out,
and if you haven't seen the first hour, we're airing it as webisodes on Mr. Sci-Fi, but also our backers and investors have already been sent the full hour, and we have audio commentaries by me, audio commentaries by Ethan McDowell and Brian McClure, two of our leads. Additionally, now there was a question about who are the financial advisors, CFO, and is there a business plan? In terms of the Space Command shares, we've had an entertainment attorney, we've had various producers advise us in terms of the financial infrastructure. The reason, basically, you get a percentage of my producer's net profits on the first 4 episodes. So because the reason we did it that way is there's no studio monkey shines. I'm assured certain amounts of money via the Writers Guild that my union protects me, and it's royalties and so forth. And so we have had it gone over by professionals, yes, but this is also an emerging model. I mean, a lot of people have bought investment shares in features. To buy an investment share in a TV show is a fairly new thing, and that's primarily because, crowdfunding and the new way of making TV shows around the world that Netflix has really engendered, and Amazon Prime and so forth, is so new. It's only the last few years that's existed. So because previously, the only people doing TV shows were the major studios, the major networks, and they didn't want to sell investment shares. They didn't need to. That wasn't their business model. So that's a rather long answer to a short question.
Shout out to Kip Yeakley, who was a
winner of the spacesuit contest.
Yes.
And we still owe you your prize. So Kip, if you want to call me at 323-363-1259. Please do, because I'd love to talk to you about that, because I don't want you to be given the shaft. It's simply because of all these ups and downs of the finances. Because originally, here's a funny story about that, which is originally the grand prize winner of the spacesuit contest, where they make a spacesuit entirely from parts from Home Depot for $100. The idea was we were going to get a $1,000 gift certificate from Home Depot, but they never agreed to that. So now it's $1,000 from Mr. Sci-Fi, and I don't mind doing that because it honors the pledge, because he built a spacesuit and we've used it. We love Kip Yeakley's spacesuit. It's wonderful, and I
believe he got to be in our I think the last thing that we shot, the Battle on Titan, which for those of you who have the full hour, is in the full hour. You can see that that scene.
Yes.
But I do want to say that Kip Yeakley says it's great for the fans to have a voice, but even better when creators listen.
Yes, and particularly when creators send checks, and so so because I don't want to screw Kip Yeakley. Kip Yeakley, you're an angel, and you've been very patient, and thank you, Kip Yeakley. But also, by the way, Kip, if you want to make a video about how wonderful it was making a spacesuit, please do, because I'll post that on Mr. Sci-Fi when we get the new spacesuit contest up and running, which will be any day now. So you're one of my heroes. And if you want to make more spacesuits, that'll be great. And we'll be talking about all that stuff. Because the trick with Space Command is always how to afford it, how to make it go. As I said, I've put about $150,000 of my own money in Space Command, which I'll never see again. But that's okay, because for me, it's just, this is like, you know, when Star Trek debuted when I was 10, or when Lost in Space was on when I was 7 and called Bill Mumy out of the blue from the phone directory, I'm still that little kid. And for me to be able to make spacesuits and build alien hibernation ships and step onto my own spaceship sets, like I stepped onto the Enterprise sets when I got a Christmas present of a trip to the original Star Trek set when they were shooting. This is a dream come true. I'm living my dream. I don't, you know, I have no complaints, none. And so I'm, you know, so that's why I don't mind, you know, spending out of pocket on Space Command. It's an honor.
Great.
So yeah.
Everyday Videos asks, are you investing in one show or Space Command Studios?
Yeah.
Good question.
Basically, the people who've put money into Space Command shares or in the Kickstarter campaign, that money's going to shooting and completing Redemption and Forgiveness, which are the first 2 4-hour stories. Said there's a lot of those expenses that can be utilized for the studio. So obviously, if we build sets, those will be reused for Great Solar War and redressed. Or if I bought the sets from Cloverfield, Paradox, and so forth, those are expenses that we can utilize in what we're shooting. Or if I you know, have expenses around, you know, if like when we were pitching to BBC or Channel 4 in London, most of that stuff I paid for out of pocket, you know, but every now and then, if something, you know, if I need to have something that's a specific Space Command expense, I might use Space Command funds, but very, 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 but you know, grudgingly, I very much prefer to have the money go directly onto the screen. That's 99% of the money. 99.9% of the money has gone exactly to visual effects and all that stuff, you know. So, but yeah, but the studio, that's right now, since we're ramping up to shoot hour 4, the second half of Forgiveness, that's all going toward that. All the expenditures around the studio and all of that, you know.
Answering a question from Larry, who asks, where can we find the Nichelle Nichols scene?
Aha.
You can find it here on Mr. Sci-Fi.
Yes.
I just posted the link in the comments.
Yeah, it's yeah, and the and Nichelle Nichols, of course, is in the Forgiveness, the second 2-hour story. She was wonderful to work with. I met her when I was 10. She gave me her own Star Trek script. She gave me a signed copy of a photo of her as Uhura, wrote me a lovely letter suggesting that I meet Theodore Sturgeon, and Ted Sturgeon, who wrote for Star Trek, later became a mentor to me when I was a teenager. Just amazing things. And to bring it full circle was absolutely wonderful. A dream come true.
Perk's question from Eric Berg.
Yes.
Greetings, Mr. Zickery. Will part 2 of Redemption and part 1 of Forgiveness be available for downloading to the Kickstarter backers who paid for that at the end of the campaign, April 5th?
The first hour, the first hour of Redemption will be, we're completing hours 2 and 3, so I don't want to send them as works in progress, because it was very funny, because at one point I was going to put out Redemption, the work in progress, with all the green screen and laid in, and Dave Edison he said to me, please do that. Please don't do that. And every now and then, most of the time when my team says, please don't do that, I talk them into why we have to do it. Like an episode out of whole cloth during the pandemic, you know, that we share for free. You know, I say crazy things, and then they finally get in step. But every now and then when they're right, and it's really not a good idea, I pull back. And that was one of those. But
unfortunately, we're not in the era of Spaceballs where we have instant cassettes.
Yes. but that said, the full hour is completed. We'll be sending that out to everyone who pledges. We have the radio play, which will be done probably within the next week or 2, and we'll send that out. Dave Edison has been working on an animatic combining the illustrations from the graphic novel with the audio play. It's looking great. The graphic novel isn't completed. We've done the first issue, and we have pencils and inks on the second issue now, and Tahani Farr is finishing it, and she'll be adding color and so forth. But once it's entirely complete, we will have basically it'll be like a 30 or 45 minute animatic of the entire prequel, and it's going to be phenomenal because it has Doug Jones and Bob Picardo and Mira Furlan and Bill Mumy and Michael Harney, and it is just swell. I actually am reaching out to Neil deGrasse Tyson because he suggested one of the plot lines in that story, and he's a character in the story, and I'm trying to see if he'll record his lines. I haven't heard back from him yet, but I'm trying. If you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, bang on him and say, Space Command!
And we are actually making progress on hour 2.
Yeah.
That's our current focus is
Yes.
hour 2 of Redemption.
Yes, we're getting there.
We have our deadline is what, July?
July 4th.
July
and
4th.
We'll see if we can make that. But again, it's all an aspect of money because
Yeah.
if I have to let my visual effects team go, that would be a big shame. And it's
gonna
only
take
a few
lot
thousand.
longer.
Yeah, I mean, our nut right now, just to keep everything going, is about 20 grand a month. And it sounds like a large number, but compared to a studio, 20 grand would be what they spend on car washes for the executives in a year,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, or more, it's like, it's amazing how they burn through money. Phenomenal, crazy. And, it's like, so if anyone, like 20 grand, to put it in perspective, 4 shares is $30,000, and that allows us to hire maybe a couple more visual effects artists and really crank through episode 2, because really the only thing we're waiting on in terms of episode 2 is finishing the visual effects. Everything else is in place. One can sit down right now and watch 3 hours of Space Command, and I do it often, but at that said, it doesn't have color correction, doesn't have final music, doesn't have all the different bells and whistles we need, but the edit is done. The edit is right there. We've got the rough cut, and I'm eager to share it with you guys, but I have to wait until it's cooked,
until it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially those of you who have been with us a long time from the beginning, and we've put out several different versions of the pilot.
Yes.
And you can see the
evolution.
You can see the evolution of, like, the current iteration is just miles
Yes.
ahead of what
well, it's handmade. It's handmade. I mean, Dave Edison and David Bartlett and Lane and myself and everyone on the team, we go over it frame by frame, literally over and over and over again. If the shot comes in and it's not what we need it to be, we work on it until it is what we need it to be. And that's why it's taken this long. I mean, we shot the first 2 hours in 2014, shot the third hour in 2015, have been shooting through 2017, 2018, 2019, and now we'll be shooting this new episode now. And, it's like, if we'd had the money we really needed, which would have been, like $5 million an episode minimally, we could have finished the entire season in a season, but we haven't had that. But the lovely part is, I still love what I'm doing. I never wake up and go, oh God, I have to work on Space Command. It's always like, this is great. So it's really fun.
Great. Let's see. Oh, Charlie Zimmerman asks, is there or could there be one single place where backers from the various Kickstarters could log in to retrieve their digital perks? We did have that originally for the very first Kickstarter on our original website.
Yes.
We have a new website, which I have been controlling. I think I'm gonna tool around with it and see. I know I can post links, so it would just be a matter of creating a page that is only accessible by backers.
I think it's a good idea. We have so many downloadable perks. We've got Space Command certificates and all sorts of stuff. You name it. The score of Space Command, the composer's sketchbook, all of that.
The thing is, not everyone got the downloadable Space Command perk or the there's layers of perks, and so we'd have to incorporate that in.
But I think what we might want to do is maybe have a special pandemic perk where someone puts in maybe $20 and gets like all the digital download stuff or something like that. I'll talk to our team, because it seems like if we have stuff that we can send out and make people happy, physical shipping is always a nightmare, but digital perks, I'd love for people to be able to get them. Absolutely. Now, Richard Ford says it's good you're doing an iterative approach. If you waited for every frame to be perfect, it would never ship. Yes. And so what we're doing is, I'll say, okay, this is the work in progress, and it's to a point now where I can share it with you. That was true. First, we released the opening sequence with the Mira being saved by Ethan McDowell and the Thomas Paine. Then we released, the first, whatever it was, like half hour, and then now we've released the first hour in its entirety. Well, we released an hour, a version of the hour that didn't include Doug waking up in the alien ship, Bob Picardo waking up in the alien ship, Doug, flying the alien ship in the battle on Titan. So that's about an extra 12 minutes or so. And it didn't include the trailers for the next 5 hours, didn't include the scene with Angelique Scott and Chilton and so forth. And so it now is over a full hour, whereas previously it was about 50 minutes or so and change or whatever. So we went back through that entire 50 minutes and made major changes. If you compare any of the versions we put out previously with what we have put out now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of differences, major differences.
Night and day.
Cool.
Yeah. Great. Let's see. Let me go back. I thought I saw...
And by the way, if any of you have specific skills, if you build websites, if you want to start a lurkers page or whatever equivalent here on, just reach out to me or to Adam, and we can make it happen. The trick always with bringing more people aboard is you have to make sure you don't bring so many cooks aboard that it's chaos in the kitchen. But if people are really skillful, it helps. It takes a universe, so that's what we're doing now.
Okay. Let's see. And then, there's a bunch of, looks like script.
Yeah.
Maybe a,
I don't know. It's okay.
Okay.
That's
some alien language.
Yeah, something. But again, the point with all of this is I'm trying to provide more and more content. One of the reasons I have Mr. Sci-Fi, and if I hope all of you are subscribers to Mr. Sci-Fi and ding the bell, because I want to get as much material as possible to all of you. And my career has been so long. Thankfully, my first radio play aired when I was 18. And my first short story was sold when I was 19. I started writing The Twilight Zone Companion when I was 21. Was writing for TV by the time I was 22 or 23. So I was very fast out of the gate. And as a result, I can look back over 40 years and more of a career as a writer, which means there's tons of stuff. I'm going to be doing a reading of my first short story here on Mr. Sci-Fi because it was a short story where Disney takes over the world. And that's certainly as timely now as ever.
Pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's really fun.
Sean Allen asks, do you plan on a toy line for Space Command?
Well, we've really got to get the Space Command store up and running competently. I have no experience working in retail or selling in retail. So we have several Space Command stores in several different locations selling stuff, but it's kind of loopy. You can go on Mr. Sci-Fi below the Mr. Sci-Fi thing, and you can buy T-shirts and
I've got links to those
like
on
this, But there's also another Space Command store where you can get models of the Paladin and Space Command patches, but that's not integrated with the others. So we really need to revamp the store and get it up and running because we've actually made a fair amount of stuff, and so I'd love for people to be able to get it, and as again that goes toward making Space Command all of that revenue. So yeah, cool.
Very good. Captain Mark said you have to introduce Adam, what he does, and his contact information here.
Sure, we did that.
Description box.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, absolutely, Adam.
Oh, in the description box. Yeah. I think we can. We'll
sure.
edit the description.
You bet.
Later, and
yeah.
I'll give you my contact
info. And for those who signed in a little late, this is Adam Sartain. He's one of our Space Command investors. Yay! And also is helping us hugely with all sorts of tasks related to fulfillment, and he helps me do the stuff
under
on
the
this.
umbrella of associate producer.
Yeah, a month. I do not have enough money in hand both to pay the rent and pay all of our people. So I have a little money I can pull out of my savings to help make that happen. But obviously Space Command shares would be very well utilized right now. So but just to let everyone know, or throwing some money at the Kickstarter campaign, which only has I think 8 days to go, and we have to make sure that because our concern is that people might pull out their money at the last moment. We sink below 45,000, then we don't get any of it. So again. Anything you can do to make sure that doesn't happen is hugely appreciated because I would can you imagine if that happened at like we go down to zero, the tank goes to empty, not fun. And so there, yeah. But and again, for those who came, a free episode, it's not part of the redemption or forgiveness or any of that. It'll be part of the timeline. It'll fit with the story, but it'll be a separate story that we're going to just do with the actors who are game. Ethan McDowell's already said yes. Brian McClure's already said yes. Mike Harney has said yes. I'm sure most of our actors will say yes, but I'm also going to reach out to the actors we haven't utilized yet, like Armin Shimmerman and Jonathan Frakes and George Takei, and see who wants to play, because it's just too cool an idea. I really love the idea.
Great. Oh, I lost it here for a second. Hold on.
Cool.
There we go. Eric Berg says, bless you guys for your hard work and looking forward to more. Love World Enough in Time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very proud of it. And that, for those who don't know, that's the Star Trek New Voyages episode I co-wrote with Michael Reeves and directed and executive produced. Elaine and I basically directed it, both of us. And it's right here on Mr. Sci-Fi. You can watch it for free. And again, you know, we're really talking about a new model of how entertainment gets made, which is that we finance it from our audience and we make it and we put it out to our audience. And I like this model. It means that I have to work a bit harder, but I don't mind that. Hard work has never been anything that I shy away from, as you all know.
Captain Mark says, work hard in this virus break time to sell Netflix, Amazon, etc., to entertain people with Space Command, a new cool series.
Yes, and that is my plan. You know, it's amazing I was going to say stupidity of the executives. You know, it's so strange. Just to get them to watch the first hour of Space Command is such a McGilla, because like, well, who's Mark Zicree? He doesn't, you know, we don't have a show on CBS by Mark Zicree right now. It's like, oh, brother, you know, and so then you have to spend enormous time and energy just getting to where they view you as legit. And my audience, I don't have to do that with my audience. My audience knows I'm legit. You know, it's like, you know, and they're so in their own enclosed universe, and it's really frustrating. We've hired a development executive, Michelle DeCosta, who's British, and she goes back and forth between here and England. She's in England right now, and you know, and again, it's just to convince them that we know what we're doing. And it's like, you know, and this thing with Amazon, I went to the Nebula Awards and I met this exec at Amazon, and finally we got, you know, in a meeting together via Zoom, and it worked out, and he's enthusiastic. But what can I say when, and you know, at what moment the penny's going to drop and they're going to say yeah. But that's also why I created the Showrunners Network. Many of you know I'm also creating a 6 series with 6 major showrunners, because again, if I'm creating a show with Rockney O'Bannon, who's executive producer on Evil on CBS, I don't have to do as much of a song and dance because they already know who that guy is. And so, you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Christiana Vergona says, what about the premiere GoFundMe?
Yes,
I'm still the only one that donated.
yeah, and thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. We were going to have it sooner rather than later. We were planning for the end of April, but of course, because of the pandemic, we're pushing that to whenever the pandemic's over. We're probably going to look at July, and so I haven't pulled the money off of that GoFundMe campaign because you were the only person who donated. You know, if you're still game, I can pull it and put it in an account specifically for that purpose, which is what I'll do. You know, we're definitely going to be doing that premiere. It's going to cost us probably about $5,000 to rent the Chinese theater and get the red carpet and all that. Certainly, I don't mind doing that. But again, I don't want to spend that money out of the money we're using to make the show, you know. So that's why I started the GoFundMe campaign. But when the pandemic moved in, I didn't put any more effort into spreading the word about that. Some other people have asked if they could maybe buy, you know, like a ticket to go. So we have to work out how that will work, the logistics of that. Haven't figured it out yet, but I will. And so, but thank you so much for putting in the money. I really, really appreciate it.
Let's see. Captain Mark.
Yeah, they're also
referring to
Rod Serling. Yeah,
they don't know who Rod Serling is.
You know, Rod Serling created and was the head genius on the Twilight Zone, the original Twilight Zone. If you've never seen it, you can go on Netflix or CBS Prime or wherever the hell they're airing it, Sci-Fi Channel, and watch it. It's one of the greatest series ever made, and it taught me everything I know, along with Star Trek and the original Outer Limits. It's really a keeper. It's an amazing show.
Thank you, Christiana. She says, do it where you need the money.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much. You're wonderful. And again, you know, it's like, it's great because you see, someone at a network who buys Space Command, they're going to be buying it as a business decision. The people who give me money for Space Command are doing it for the love of it. They're doing it for the passion of it. They get it. And and because no one's going to invest in Space Command. They could buy an apartment building or whatever. I mean, it's like, they're going to do it because they want to see this show come into existence. They like what I'm doing. They recognize that I'm the real deal, that I'm authentic. And, there are a lot of Hollywood types who are exactly like the stereotype. They're awful people with no the moral center. But there's an equal number who are like me, and those are the people I know, and those are the people I associate with. And Ron Moore is certainly one of them. Mark Fergus is certainly one. Michael Nankin, all the people who are making great shows. And I'm glad to be part of that fraternity.
Everyday Video says friend, how do I walk into insert famous entertainment company and tell them Mark Zipri needs a big budget to produce this series?
Well,
no business plan, investor package. Docs.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
We do have a business plan and investor package. Like if you buy a share in Space Command for $7,500 or multiple shares, as many have done, there's an LLC. We've got an LLC. We've got a subscription agreement. We've got a PPM, private placement memorandum. We've done it all in accord with the SEC rules. So we actually do have all of that in place. So we're not flying blind at all.
Investors get a K1 form every year.
Yeah. So no, we have an entertainment attorney, we have an accountant, we have a bookkeeper. I mean, everything's transparent. And
the percentage that the investors get are, no matter whatever form Space Command takes, it's the first 4 episodes.
Right. So if it sells us 2-hour movies, but I've started with selling it as a TV series because that's where the most money is. That's where it has the chance of getting out to the largest audience and making the most money for our investors. So so there is absolutely. But in terms of walking into a production office, remember that all of those executives. Sorry about that. I'll close that off. That's a call coming in, so I'll turn that off. Sorry about that, guys. So how do we get the screen back? Everyone went away. Let's see. I guess this. There we go. There we go. Now we can see ourselves. Sorry about that. In terms of walking into these executives' offices, remember that all those executives are stuck at home going crazy. Their, production stopped, pitches have stopped for the most part. So if you see that there's an executive who has a Twitter feed or a LinkedIn thing or a Facebook page, reach out to them and say, hey, have you guys heard about Space Command? And eventually, if enough people do it, they're going to say, what's Space Command? And then they'll say, contact Mark Zicree. And then, stranger things have happened, and so, the way I ended up writing a book with Guillermo del Toro was I met him at Comic-Con and introduced myself, so definitely, and the more people who are banging the drum for us. For instance, the fact that Mr. Sci-Fi has 27,000 subscribers and gets maybe 500, 1,000 hits on a video, is crazy. It's like millions of people should be watching these videos, particularly Space Command, the hour. So spread the word. If you know anyone on a science fiction website, podcast, anything, get the word out, because now is the moment where everyone is home and bored. They want an excuse not to have to deal with their children, and so and the children probably want an excuse to not have to deal with their parents.
There we go.
And
it is a family-friendly show.
It is. It's not a kid show, but it's family-friendly. That's deliberate. So whereas on Star Trek, you'll have people going, saying fuck and eating, and Klingons eat people and all this stuff. You don't have that on Space Command, deliberately so, because I want it to be a show where people can watch it with their kids. I want it to be a show where it's for the whole family, like Star Trek was. Many of us who watch Star Trek or Star Trek: The Next Generation, you knew that there would be concepts that would open your minds, that would inspire children, but there wouldn't be anything where you would have to say, God, why did they have that on, like pulling people's eyes out and things on, like on Picard? Come on, guys, what universe do you live in, really?
Right.
And I do understand it, but I don't approve of it. And now, again, like Fugitive Space, which is another one of my shows that I'm going to be doing, that is hard edge. That's about convicts in the future and blah blah blah. And yes, they speak appropriate to who they are, but that's not intended as a show to sit down with your 5-year-old, unless it's an extremely advanced 5-year-old. But that's another conversation entirely.
We got a bunch more questions from Everyday Videos. are people writing checks to Mark or
No.
to you or
No.
the company?
No,
Right.
it's you
To the
you
LLC.
write it to cash. No, no, it's to Space Command Forgiveness
Yeah.
LLC. Yeah. Again, I've kept my hands very clean in this whole
Yeah.
thing deliberately because it's like when Axanar crashed and burned, and I know it's still up and running as in its diminished capacity, but again, one has to be very careful in terms of honoring what you say you're going to do and spending the money the way you say you're going to spend it. So no, it's when you buy a share, it's in Space Command Forgiveness, and that's what you write the check to. And we have a separate Space Command account. We do Space Command tax. And also in terms of let's see,
They also say, they say what names are with you and who is running the business part of
Yes.
Space Command.
Yeah, again, we have an entertainment attorney, we have a bookkeeper, we have an accountant. Elaine and I go over all that stuff very, very carefully. Various people have wanted to come aboard sort of as our business partner at various times, and they haven't been crooks by any means, not at all. They've been good-hearted individuals, but they haven't had the idea of how to make this run and so they've spent a lot of money needlessly. Like early on when we were setting up LLCs, they set up our 4 LLCs, which we had to pay $800 a year on as California LLC tax. And that, again, most of that came out of my pocket. And it was like, we closed those down, but it took a while to do that. And it was like, just kind of people with a little too much enthusiasm and a little too, everyone's trying to make this be a Star Trek or a Star Wars, a franchise that takes off and makes a ton of money. And it may ultimately be, but for now you have to kind of be present to what the reality is and work toward that reality. And that's why, if I'm paying someone $100 a shot for visual effects, normally they might get $1,000 a shot, but I'm not paying anyone $1,000 a shot because, Paramount can afford that, but I can't. So again, etc. So it's pretty clear.
David Tremont asks or says, just wanted to say thanks. I come from practical effects with miniatures. Would you ever shoot miniatures?
I'd love to.
We actually have.
Yes. And
there's a scene that we did. I posted a few behind the scenes pictures in our Facebook group.
Yes.
But we did shoot a scene with a statue.
Yes. Of Captain Cameron.
A couple of statues.
Yes,
actually.
and a statue of me.
Yeah.
But as a little in joke. But and in terms of someone asked, can they buy a half share? The best way to do that is if you team with someone who wants to buy a share, then it would be like a partnership, and you can buy a full share with someone else. So that would be possible, but not. We don't tend to sell half shares as standalones because it just gets kind of loopy.
Really complicated.
Yeah, so it's better if you have a buddy and they go in with you or whatever. A half share is only $3,250. Not to diminish that, that's still money, but it's not, it's not going to buy you a house. So and then do I have Jakar, Lando in the series? The two actors had chemistry that made the show. Same with Mythos and Joan Highlander. Well, it's so funny because when I was a producer on Sliders, I took Jakar out to lunch, and he was such a wonderful actor and an amazing man, and I would have absolutely used him in Space Command if he hadn't passed away. He was so wonderful. But you're asking specifically in terms of the chemistry of our actors. Yes, many of our actors have a wonderful chemistry. Doug Jones and Bob Picardo, they hadn't worked before, and they're great together as Dor Nevin and Yusuf Sikander. I think Mira Furlan and her daughter have a wonderful thing going when her daughter is so, like, well, how can we get out of here? When do we get out of here? She's kind of so complainy, but she loves her daughter. There's a lot of great chemistry. Nathaniel Freeman and Angelique Scott were great in the scene together. Armin Shimmerman's going to be playing Bob Picardo's grandson. That's going to be great fun. Bill Mummy was great. Again, you find these sort of mix and match kind of scenes and characters. I can't wait to have Armin in his scenes and Ethan Phillips. I can't wait to work with Ethan. So those scripts are written. We just have to get to them. We have to have enough money to shoot them. So. So thanks guys.
And,
so okay, yeah.
Rick K asks, why don't we see more of Bruce Boxleitner in the show?
That's an interesting question. I'd like to have him in the show more. Again, it's just as we can get to stuff. I mean, for instance, the cast in Redemption is the cast that you've seen. The cast in Forgiveness is, Ethan McDowell, Brian McClure, all our regular cast of characters. But then we also have James Hong, we have John Hennigan, we have Farhan Tahir. So those stories, as written, there really wasn't a place to put Bruce Boxleitner. So I wouldn't mind at all having him more in the show, but just haven't gotten around to that point yet.
Let's see here. Mark Gray says, get something on the LA TV news. All execs are watching the virus news. He says, explain. I actually had an idea, had an idea about that.
Sure.
As I was reading this, I think what would be very newsworthy would be this episode that we're doing from quarantine.
And that is a thought. Yes, absolutely. So
I think it would be very newsworthy.
I think it's going to be newsworthy. Yes, because again, I think that it's inventive and no one's doing it that I know of. And so, yeah, absolutely. So that is something we will pursue. But again, if anyone knows reporters, people with podcasts, anything like that, we're happy to do that to promote and spread the word. And then there was also the question, explain Space Command, run a clip and explain how you can green screen film with actors in their homes. Yes, exactly. That would be what we would do. So what we might want to do is shoot maybe a scene or a sequence and then have that as kind of our proof of concept. So give me a week or two and I'll have that in hand. Yeah, absolutely.
Christiana, I want to give a shout out to her. She says she's going to put in another $100.
Great. Thank you so much.
Part 2 on our Kickstarter. Thank
you. Thank you.
Yay.
Absolutely. And now also, when Mark is saying perhaps offer hour 1 for channel, what I'm going to do with the first hour in the next few weeks, we'll run all the webisodes that are made up for that hour, and then probably I'll post the full hour so that people can see it, and I'll post the commentaries, because again, sharing it with our audience helps. But again, anything you guys can do to spread the word is enormously appreciated, because most science fiction fans have not heard of Space Command. They have not seen it. They don't know about it, and the more people who know about it, the better everyone does, and the faster we can go.
Great.
Yeah.
KTLA 5 is looking for someone now.
Okay, well, yeah. So maybe Adam will call KTLA and say, "Hey, who can I talk to there?
Right.
Who puts on the news items?" Sometimes it's as simple as that. And then they say,
we can even to one of the webisodes.
Of course, you bet. Sure. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Mountains of Elysium asks, would you be open to watch streams with different sci-fi YouTube channels on Space Command episodes?
Yes, absolutely. Sure. You bet.
It'd be a great space for discussion. Okay.
Good. Yeah, that'd be fun. Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Christiana. 243 total.
Wow. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a different way of making TV, and it's so antithetical to what I was brought up to do. I remember I had an agent at CAA at one point when Space Command was just starting, and when he was aware that I was talking about everything I was doing, he said, "No, you don't talk. You don't talk to the audience. You don't share things with them from your life or your creative process." And for a while, I had to be very careful to kind of walk a tightrope of splitting the difference, but he was the old school. The old school is you don't share your creative process. You share when the show airs, that's your conversation with your audience. Maybe you get a letter. Maybe you get, go to a convention every now and then. They don't understand the new model, which is I'm totally transparent in terms of, hey, here's a scene I'm doing. What do you guys think? And then they go, well, you should do this and that. So, okay, I'll make it work. And I like the new model much better.
Rick K asks, is there any of the typical sci-fi YouTube influencers that you have showed Space Command to?
Not far and wide. And again, I think
you were on Orville Nation.
Yes, I was on Orville Nation. But Den of Geek, all those guys, no, they haven't been made aware. So yeah, it's again finding the person who has the ear of the person, because they get so besieged with emails and people wanting to promote whatever they're doing that it's the way to cut through the noise so that they pay attention. But yes, I'd love to. If any of you have websites or podcasts or YouTube channels that you know about, we're very interested. Or if you want to reach out to them on our behalf, we absolutely would be happy to screen some of Space Command and on their channel and so forth. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to make sure I don't miss anyone.
Sure. No, absolutely.
I think we've got it.
Cool.
Oh, back earlier, Larry wrote, Rod Serling would love your Twilight Zone companion.
Thank you. Yes,
very
well,
high praise.
yes, well, Carol Sterling, who we just recently lost, Rod's widow, loved it, and the daughters both love it, Jody and Ann. So I'm actually, as part of the Showrunners Network, I've been starting conversations with the Serling family about doing a new show called Rod Serling's After Twilight, where Rod would actually narrate those episodes from dictabelts that he used to dictate scripts and letters and everything. And they thought those dictabelts, those dictation belts were lost. They found 200 of them recently in a university archive. And so I would take those and utilize those for news stories. And also I would shoot the story that I wrote for Twilight Zone, the script I wrote for the Twilight Zone when they brought it back in the 80s that was pulled by the censors 1 week before prep. We would shoot that episode. And also there's some scripts that Rod wrote that I would love to shoot as part of that. So again, that's in the future.
Everyday Video says you may need to address a younger demographic. Space Command leans age 40 plus.
So yeah, it's well, again, we're we one thing is that there are fans of Space Command in all demographics, which is terrific. Young people love it, older people love it. So I'm very glad. I don't. Let's put it this way. Science fiction cuts across all different races, ages, everything, finances, everything. It's a world genre. I got a call from someone in Kuwait, a young woman who wanted to buy shares in Space Command. I mean, it's like, and she was as geeky as they come, and it was great. She was a Muslim, and she was glad that we had a Muslim character who was like just a regular person and not the Muslim. And Bob Picardo's character. And then let's see. We also have Nikki Baldwin.
Yes.
Hey, Nikki, I've been calling you, but haven't been hearing back. So good to see your name here. Feel free to call at any point. It's we're happy. In terms of Space Command, if someone puts up enough money in terms of buying shares, we can work out titles or whatever. It's like it's people can get producer credits and that sort of stuff. Because again, if we have $200,000, we can roll camera on the fourth hour. But we have to raise that 200,000. So that's the challenge. I mean, if someone contacted me and said, "Hey, I can put in 200,000," it's like, great. And then we would just keep raising money to continue shooting the other stuff and finishing hours 2 and 3 and all the things we're doing. But it's like, so yes, so I'm open to conversations with anyone who wants to give us significant.
Richard Ford posits JMS shared his creative process online when doing Babylon 5, and it was hugely engaging for the audience.
Yes, and I'm
ahead of the curve.
And Joe, many of you know I started Joe in the business. I guaranteed him as a story editor on Captain Power when I developed that show for TV. And he and I had been friends for years by that point, and I wrote for him when he was story editing Real Ghostbusters. And I was very impressed with how he interacted with his audience. And it was 5 years from when he wrote Babylon's 5's pilot to when it sold. And I read that script years before it sold. I thought it was terrific. And when I saw the pilot, I thought, it took them a year to greenlight this show from when they made the pilot, because they had to wait to air it and see what the response was. And then, but Joe really, and the model, the way he ran Babylon 5, he and John Copeland and Doug Netter, by basically taking a warehouse, turning it into a soundstage, and making the show with standing sets. That's very much the model I'm using for Space Command. And also I got to see, of course, how Deep Space Nine was shot too. It's the whole Star Trek model. You have spaceship sets. You have standing sets. You go on location as little as possible. On Babylon 5, they never left the building. It took 3 years for the Teamsters to even find them. So it was, and then they had to negotiate a contract. But yes, Joe was really ahead of the curve, and I certainly admire what he's done. And and then Mounds of Elysium says, can I put a few clips of Space Command on your channel? Of course, yes, you bet.
Question: do we have, because Captain Marks says we need a trailer. Do we have? I know we have an older trailer.
We have trailers.
Do we have a trailer with what we have now? Yeah.
So that would be just coordinating with Dave Edison, our editor. We actually have trailers for Redemption, for Forgiveness, for Great Solar War. So we have trailers for the first six hours of Space Command, half of the first season, and we also have the standalone scene that introduces Delaney Chilton, Angelique Scott's character. And that's all at the end of the first hour. You can see all that stuff at the end of the first hour. Yeah. So let's see what else.
For Mountains, I'm giving you a email address to send to.
Great.
And then we'll forward you.
We'll make that happen.
Those clips.
So probably we should close in a moment or two. If there's any final questions, guys, feel free to ask them. Nikki, definitely please give me a call. I would love to hear from you. And so any last questions from anyone? Or now,
let's see.
Now, also on Sunday, we're going to be doing another live stream for the backers, for the Kickstarter followers.
Case you missed, for anyone who missed this one.
Yeah, in terms of our investors, I think we've got about 20, and we've sold about half of the shares, so we still have half that we can sell at $7,500 each. And again, just calling me at 323-363-1259 or emailing me at markzickery@gmail.com. Happy to send the material, the investment documentation, and then you just sign a one-page subscription agreement, send me a check for how many shares you're buying, and it keeps the lights on, keeps us going. I mean, the pandemic has made things more challenging, but we're not stopping in any way, shape, or form. The fact that I'm doing another episode freestanding during the pandemic is insane, but that's Space Command, and we're going to do it. And and I'll be announcing soon some of the actors who are going to be in it, and I just have to figure out what they're playing. And but yeah, absolutely. And but the investors also get a number of things. I mean, we have a lunch or a dinner at Comic-Con every year where our investors are welcome to come. They're always welcome to come to our studio, either in pre-production or while we're shooting. Our investors will be, given. I mean, you're always first in our hearts and first in our minds in terms of, you guys are really putting serious money up. But anyone who throws any money our way or does anything to help us, we're grateful. And and thanks for all the kind words. I'm very proud of Space Command. It's and anyone anywhere in the world can buy shares, of course, can donate to the Kickstarter campaign. And again, if you have a skill, if you want to do a Space Command poster or build a spacesuit, please do. And we're shopping, yes, and we're definitely pitching the show to the networks now. We're actively being considered by CW and also Amazon. I just had a meeting via Zoom with Amazon on Saturday, and it went very, very well. And I'm ever hopeful. I'm not. Those of you who know me know I'm an optimistic person. I'm not a cynic. I'm not. Life is exciting. Life is good. I have no complaints. All of you stay safe. Stay protected. Stay well. That Elaine and I are trying to do the same. And so. Anything
Looks
else?
like there's a virtual comic convention coming up in late April.
Yeah.
COVID-Con 2020.
Yeah. So
we'll definitely look into that.
We absolutely will. Well, thank you all. It's been lovely having you here. I'm posting on Mr. Sci-Fi pretty much every day, so definitely subscribe. And if you want to continue the question and answer session, we'll be having one on Sunday.
Yes.
At what time do you know, Adam? Probably maybe 1?
Maybe 1 o'clock. Let's try 1:30 again.
1:30?
Same time. Yeah.
Okay, great.
1:30. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all, and we'll talk really soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
There
we go.
Yay.